Hello everyone, photographer Ronix from Ronix Photography, and in this tutorial today I'm going to be showing you guys how to make your images pop, and we are also going to be learning about skin retouching, and yeah, major emphasis is going to be on how to make your images pop. So in order to achieve that, we're going to be learning about various and different methods, and as usual we're going to start straight from the raw image, as you can see, because we want to first of all see how we can make images pop from an area with no colors or vibrance added at. So we are basically starting from zero to see how we can make images pop. Then we are later on going to learn about high-end skin retouching in Photoshop. That is going to be an in-depth tutorial. Then we're also going to be doing some little bit of skin sculpting using Dodge and Burn. And we're also going to be doing the eye whitening. Then later on continue with the adding those beautiful and vibrant colors to make the image pop a little bit more. So this is going to be kind of a lengthy tutorial. So let's kick in and we start. And as usual, I prefer to show you guys how I make or color grade my images from the very start. So the very first step for my color grading is in the camera raw filter. You can see I'm using an older version, but I'll be upgrading quite soon enough. So this is the raw image, and it was taken using a Canon 6D camera at f5.6, and I shot this image at around, it was at around 2 p.m. and I used the Godox AD600 and an 85 millimeter. I shot it at 1 out of 800th of a second. So my very first step for color grading or making my images pop comes in the camera raw when I drag my raw image into Photoshop. So you should be having the camera raw filter in order for you to be able to achieve this step I'm going to show you right away. So first of all, look for the camera calibration option, and under camera calibration we usually have very many options. uh, Camera calibration basically is getting the image, getting the right colors the way we want to look at them, or the way we are looking at the images when we are trying to shoot them in field. So different cameras have different picture or camera profiles. So when you click under camera profile, you see various camera profiles. So usually I prefer to shoot my images in Adobe Landscape or Camera Landscape. So I'm going to click on that. So depending on the picture style you shoot in, just come and click on it if at all you shoot in raw. So I shoot in landscape because I want to get those nice and beautiful colors. So just click on landscape and you'll see you get back most of the colors in your image. So usually I shoot with Canon, and you can see I usually get so much or so many red tones in my images. So I'm going to work against that or remove the reds from the image. So usually I prefer to knock down my highlights, then I also knock down my whites to get more of the details. You can see the image was kind of looking pale. Then I prefer to pump my blacks down a little bit to around 21. Then I'm going to pump up my shadows slightly to around 17. Then I prefer to add a little bit of contrast to around 5. Then since this adds the image kind of looks pinkish, I'm going to come under the tint. Remember, the opposite of magenta is green, so you're going to move towards the green side to get more of that warm kind of feel into this image. So you're going to go with around negative 18 to kind of eliminate the reddish kind of tones or the magenta tones that were existing in the image. And after I've done that, I prefer to pump up my clarity to around 5. Then I prefer to knock down my vibrance to around negative 7. So I'm going to open the image into Photoshop. So that is the very first step for making your images pop or color grading your images. So secondly, we are going first of all crop this image because I want to post this image on Instagram. So usually Instagram allows us to crop images in a ratio of 45 or 8:10 because we want the image to fit into the whole screen when we upload it onto Instagram. So after select the crop ratio, that is 4:5, and look for the right way you want to crop your image. I think I'm just going to go a little bit tight. I think that is fine. So click enter on the keyboard. So I think we're done cropping the image. So if at all we zoom in by pressing Ctrl plus on the keyboard, you can see the details we are going to be working with for this very image. So this is the image. So we're going to be learning about the wonderful frequency separation technique of skin retouching in Photoshop. So we are going to be using a mixer brush tool and using the second method for using the lasso tool method for perfecting or refining the skin tones or the skin texture on this image. So basically, frequency separation is a skin retouching technique that divides the image into two. It gets the textures, it puts them on one layer, and it also gets the skin tones, puts them on a separate layer so that we can work on the different layers selectively. So we're going to make those two layers by clicking Ctrl or Command J twice. Then you're going to name the lower layer for purposes of uniformity. We're going to name it skin. Let's name it tones. And you're going to name the above layer, sorry, tones. So we are still naming this other layer, or some people call it low frequency. Yeah, then the top layer we are going to name it textures. So the texture layer has to be on top, or some people call it the high frequency, because usually on our skins the textures are usually exposed, or they are like on top of, and the tones are usually beneath the textures. So that's why you have to put these layers in this kind of order. So after we have done that, we are going to first of all deactivate the texture layer and select the tones layer. So what we are going to do, basically we are just going to come, and we only want to remain with the tones in the low frequency layer. So in order to do that, we are going to come right to filter, then we are going to come to blur and come to Gaussian blur. So when you do that, you get this little dialog box. So you're going to turn this all the way towards the left up to 0.1. So we're going to move this slider until let's first of all look for an area that seems to have more skin textures. So we're going to move up to this area. So we're going to move this until we can no longer see these textures on the model skin, so that we can remain with the skin tones on these very tones or low frequency layer. So let's move this until those really disappear. So I think they're still there. So let's move this. I think at 10 we can no longer see these textures. If at all I zoom out, we can no longer see that. So remember, now we can only see the colors. So some people prefer to call this tones layer the color layer. So come and click OK, and now select your texture layer and activate it. And now for the texture layer, we only want to remain with the textures, but we don't want to remain with the skin tones. So you're going to come right to image and click on apply image. So when you click on apply image, your image is going to automatically turn into this kind of color. So what we are going to do, basically we are going to subtract the textures from the tones layer. So we are going to select the tones layer and come to the blending mode and look for subtract. So click on it. So when you click on it, if at all your image is not looking like this, make sure your opacity is 100, the scale is 2, and the offset 128. The reason for this is we want to get a 50% gray of the 256 colors. So that's why we need to put these two, scale 2 and offset 128. So make sure your preview is on. So when you do this, your image is going to only have the textures or the outlines on this file layer. So after you have done that, click OK and come to the blending and change it from normal to, you're going to change it to linear light. So when you do that, you get back the image the way it was before. So what we're going to do, basically we're going to select both layers and click Ctrl or Command G to put them in a group. So we're going to name this group frequency separation. So I'm just going to abbreviate that. So there shouldn't be a difference between your frequency separation group and the original background layer, so that it can prove to us that we have successfully done the frequency separation or separated the image into two layers. So basically that is all for creating the frequency separation group. So we're going to select the texture layer, and right now what we're going to do, we're going to be creating a black and white layer that is going to show us where the skin tones are not transitioning quite well. So we are going to be using a mixer brush tool to create those beautiful skin tone transitions and remove those bumpiness. I don't know if you guys can see them. You can see we have some bumpiness right here. We have bumpiness right here. So you just want to transition so that you can have uniform skin tones on those particular areas. So select your texture or high frequency layer and come under the adjustments, then create a black and white adjustment layer. Then we are going to move towards the left hand side under the red channel and darken it. So when you darken it, you can now see the uneven skin tones. You can see where we're going to be mixing. So we're going to close that and select the tones layer. Remember, skin tones are part of the skin tones layer. That's why we're going to select that, and we're going to blend them using the mixer brush tool in Photoshop. So we're going to come right here under the brushes, right click, and you look for your mixer brush tool, or just right click here and look for your mixer brush tool. So here is where you set up your mixer brush tool to give you the best settings for blending the skin tone. So come right under here and make sure it is a clean brush. So drop down, make sure it is a clean brush. So we have two options right here. So make sure you select the very second one, make sure it is selected, or the box is kind of dark, and make sure your wetness is at 9 or below if at all you want to retain enough texture. So you're going to go with the wetness of around 7%. We're going to go with a load of 75, the mix at 90, and the flow at 100. Make sure sample all layers is not marked or selected, because we only want to work on this layer and we don't want the mixer brush tool to sample from all these other layers. So make sure the tones layer is selected. So we're going to zoom in a little bit onto the image and increase on the brush size by using the right bracket on the keyboard. So you can use the left bracket to reduce on the size of the brush, or the right bracket to increase on the size of the brush. So we're going to mix the midtones alone, the highlights alone, and the shadows alone. So make sure you don't transition between the highlights and the shadows, because you're going to distort the facial shape or structure. So just a blend where everywhere you see the skin tones are not even or transitioning quite well. So you shouldn't overmix an area for too long, because when you do so, it is going to be doubling the wetness effect of the mixer brush tool. So it's going to be working or dealing away with the skin textures or doubling the wetness. So make sure you don't just mix slightly, because I'm going to be sharing with you guys the very second method that you're going to be using to fine-tune the image even more after using a mixer brush tool. So as you can see, I'm just blending the shadows right here alone. We have this highlight, then we have the sunlight was kind of hitting her face. I'm just blending those particular areas. So I think, let's see the progress so far. Turn off the black and white layer, so you can as well work without it. So let's say before and after. You can see the before after. You still have the details into the model skin. So activate your black and white and continue blending or mixing the skin tones for this model. So let's come to the nose area and just continue blending those particular areas. So you shouldn't mind if at all it is not perfect. So basically we're just trying to blend the areas that seem to have those harsh transitions within the skin tone. So we're just kind of blending them or harmonizing them together. So I think we are done with that area. So let's blend right here on top of the model's lips. So make sure you blend each and every area, because we don't want to miss out harmonizing particular areas. So I think this looks fine to me. So let's zoom out and we see what we have, or we can blend right here again. So let's blend the model's neck. So I know most retouchers tend to forget the neck area, but you shouldn't do that mistake as a retoucher, because you're retouching the whole image and not only at the face of the model. So people are going to judge you by looking at the overall finished image, not only the face. So that's why we are also trying to work on the model's hands right now. So I think we are doing quite a nice job right here. So I think this looks fine and beautiful. So what you're going to do next, you're going to turn this off and we see what we have done so far. So that's the before and after, before, after. So we still, you can as well work without the black and white layer. Yeah, and you just come and transition those areas you can visibly see with your naked eyes. I have been using my eyes, so I wasn't using a microscope, so that wasn't necessary. So let's continue doing this. I think we have done enough. So we're going to delete this and we're going to refine the image even more. So select the black and white layer and you can click delete on your keyboard or drag it to the trash can icon. So get your lasso tool, make sure you're still on the low frequency layer or the tones layer. So get your lasso tool, make sure feathering is 23 pixels and aliases are selected. Yeah, the reason for a feathering we want are smooth, nice selections. So we're going to now zoom in completely onto the image, and this time around what we are going to do, we are going to select only the skin area of the model to give it a more refined kind of look. So make sure when you're doing these selections, you resist from selecting on the eyebrows or some part of the hair or the kind of the edges. So we are going to come to filter and come to blur and come to Gaussian blur. So we're going to move this slider until we can see a perfect texture for our model skin. So let's kind of zoom out and you're just going to move this until we see the image looking kind of refined. So I think we're going to go in for around 33 like that. So I think this looks fine and the skin texture look really natural to me. So you can as well multiply that radius by 3 and add 3 to the value. So whichever radius you may have used when you're creating your frequency separation, multiply it by 3 and add 3. So we had 10 here, then when we multiply 10 by 3, we got 30, then we added 3 to that value to get this 33. So click OK. So we're going to apply the effect on the rest of the image. So what we're going to do, we're just going to continue making selections around the model skin and right clicking and applying the Gaussian blur. So we're just going to be doing that. So right click and click on Gaussian blur to apply the effect. So if at all you feel the effect is too much for your liking, I'm going to be sharing with you guys how you can reduce on that effect on a particular area in a bit. So right click on Gaussian blur. So if at all you feel that effect is quite too much for your liking, click on Shift Ctrl F on the keyboard and you get this option to reduce on the opacity of that particular effect. So click OK, and now we're just going to apply it right here. You can see I'm just drawing these shapes according to the area I'm selecting. So those shapes really matter at the end of your retouching process. So let's continue doing this. So I'm going to be sharing with you guys how to remove blemishes right next after this, because I don't prefer to remove the blemishes at the start, because the mixer brush tool kind of makes things so easy for me when I'm going to remove the blemishes. So it flattens out most of the blemishes on the model skin, so I'll have less work to do with the blemish removal. So I'm just going to select and apply it right there. So right now we're going to be removing the blemishes from the model skin, and for blemishes, remember they are part of the textures. So select your texture layer and get your clone stamp tool. I will always recommend the use of a clone stamp tool to remove the blemishes. So we are going to start removing the blemishes. So how the clone stamp tool works, you sample from a clean area by holding down the alternate key on the keyboard. So you click on a clean area next to the blemish by holding down the alternate button and paint over the blemish. So make sure you're on the texture layer. So you're just going to remove or paint over all the blemishes to do this. And all I can say about blemish removal, you really have to take your time while doing this step because it contributes over 70% to your overall retouched image. So you have to really take your time with this first step. So let's clean up the image, and within a minute or two we shall be done with removing the blemishes. So I'm just doing this for the sake of the tutorial. Like I've said, always and always make sure you take your time while removing those acne, blemishes, pimples and everything while you're doing your skin retouching, because it is going to contribute over 70% to your overall retouched image. So let's do this in less than 2 minutes, and we are going to be back with yet another beautiful and useful information that is going to be skin sculpting using the beautiful and amazing dodge and burn technique to bring back the shapes and dimension to this image. Remember, when you use frequency separation, it kind of tends to flatten the image and you lose out on those beautiful shapes or contours on the model's faces. So you have to recover that by using the amazing dodge and burn technique. Yeah, so we are going to be using the global dodge and burn, not the micro, to bring back the beautiful dimension or shapes to the model's face. So you have to really be careful with the blemish removal. That's why I'm taking I'd promised a minute or two, but it is kind of taking longer than I expected because I want to get out a clean image out of my tutorial and retouching process. And by the way, I'm also going to post this image on my Instagram so that you can see what it is going to look like on my Instagram account. So if at all you haven't followed me yet on Instagram, feel free to follow me on Instagram at Ronix Photography, and you can be free to ask me some questions. Yeah, I'll be able to reply whenever I can so that I can share and become great together. So I think we are done removing the blemishes from our model's face. So let's try to clean up these lines, some of the lines in the neck area. So right click, sample, clean area, and you're just going to drag to clean up these lines. So let's get rid of these two. So I'm just holding down the alternate button next to the blemish. Hold down and click on a clean area and paint over the blemish to remove it or get rid of it. So we are done removing the pimples or blemishes from this very image. So that's the before and after so far. You can see how beautiful the image is looking now. So what we are going to do right now, we are going to be sculpting the image using the amazing dodge and burn technique. So we're going to come right under the curves and click on the curves adjustment layer. First of all, you're going to brighten. So remember, when you are brightening, when you are dodging, we'll be brightening particular areas, and we are burning, we'll be darkening particular areas. So this is the bright area. So make sure your mask is selected. Click Ctrl or Command I on the keyboard to hide that effect. So you're going to name that dodge, like that. So you're going to make a second one, come to the curves, and make a midpoint, and this time around darken. Make sure it is selected. Click Ctrl or Command I to hide that effect, and you're going to name that a burn. So we're going to put these two in a group. So we're going to click Ctrl or Command G to put them in a group after selecting them. So we're going to name that D and B for dodge and burn. So we're going to open this dodge and burn group, and you're going to select the topmost um, layer, and now we are going to come and create another black and white layer. Come to the red channel and darken. So when you darken, you're going to see the areas we really want to dodge and burn. So when you turn off the frequency separation group, you'll see those areas that really had shadows initially at the start. So we have turned this off. So first of all, we are going to be burning. So make sure you select the mask after turning off the frequency separation group. Get your brush tool, make sure the opacity is 9% and the flow 100. Make sure white is on the foreground. Make sure you have black and white right here. And if at all you don't have them, click right on these two boxes, you'll get that. And make sure white is on top by clicking on this arrow. So we're going to be revealing what we had hidden using a black mask. So come to the shadows, and we're just going to paint over those shadows like that. We have a shadow, then we had that shadow, then we are going to zoom in slightly, and make sure you're doing this, don't zoom in all the way. I think that's too much, so I think that is reasonable. Make sure you dodge and burn the way someone is going to be looking at the image. So we're just going to bring back that beautiful shape, and I think that is we're just going to also burn on the neck area, that collarbone. So come to the dodge, and you're now going to highlight those areas that had highlights. So you're going to dodge that chin area, then come right here, we had a highlight, we're just going to dodge there too, and we are going to also do it right on this beautiful highlight on the nose and slightly on the lip area. So come to the neck area, and we're just going to do that. We have a highlight right here, so you can take your time while doing this. So when you turn this on, you'll see we now have that shape and dimension. So you can see when we delete the black and white layer after we have done so, we're going to see what we have done for our dodging and burning. So you can see the before after. We have just brought back the beautiful shape and dimension onto the model's face. So we're going to close the dodge and burn group. So here we're going to be learning about how to further color grade this beautiful image and bring back those colors to give it a more popping feel, or how to make your images pop after color grading. Remember, we first of all did it in Camera Raw, so this is the second step of how to make your images pop in Photoshop. So you're going to first of all come right here and click on selective color. So when you come to selective color, we want first of all make our blacks really dark enough. So again, select blacks and darken. I think this looks fine to me. Let's go with 5. And after we have done so, we are going to come, I think that's too much, under the yellows, and you're going to add that more bluish kind of feel to the image. You can see the image already looks nice and it is having that popping kind of look. So we are going to come under the reds of the image, and you're going to turn down. We are going to turn down the magenta, turn them down like that to get those more beautiful and natural skin tones. And you are also going to come under the yellows and turn down the yellow in the yellows like that. I think this looks beautiful to me now. So what you're going to do, you're just going to close that, and you're going to come under the brightness and contrast. So come right here and make sure you select use legacy. So we want it to have a more popping kind of feel. I think at around 3. I think that's too much. Let's go with 2. 2 looks good to me. So right now what we're going to do, we are going to now go back to Camera Raw to further color grade this beautiful image. So we're going to make a screenshot of all we have done by clicking Shift Ctrl Alternate E on the keyboard to create a stamp visible layer for all we have done, and duplicate that layer by clicking Ctrl or Command J on the keyboard. come back to filter and come to camera raw filter. So under camera raw, we are going to further color grade the image. So we're going to click on the camera calibration, and we're also going to further color grade the image. So you can come to the blue primary and see what it has in store for us. So I think 2 is enough for this. Then we're going to only come to the red primary, and we're going to, I think 1 is enough for us. So we're going to come at a basic panel, and we're just going to cool down the image a little bit. I think, yeah, -3 is enough for it. So we're going to now whiten the eyes for the model to give it a more popping kind of feel. So get your adjustment brush, and I also already have the settings, so I'm just going to go through the settings I usually use. Since the eyes are having some kind of yellowish kind of tones, we are going to remove that by turning down the temperature to -28, and the tint is 72. The highlights is at 6 and the whites at 6. Remember, we're removing color from the white area of the eye. That's why my saturation is at -74. The rest are left at 0, as you can see, and we're just going to paint over the white area. Make sure you only paint over only and only on the white area, like that. So just paint over. You can as well enhance that beautiful catch light by painting over it to make the eyes even pop a little bit more. So we are going to come right here, and we are going to zoom into the teeth, and we're just going to whiten them too. So just come and now paint over each and every tooth and leave nothing out to give this a more beautiful and more professional kind of feel. I hope you guys are really learning from this very beautiful tutorial we have just made. So let me turn this. I think that is fine. So we're going to come under the basic, and we're going to turn down the contrast slightly to around, we're going to go with -7. I think this looks really beautiful to me. So I'm just going to click OK on the keyboard. So you can see this is the before camera raw and the after. It is really a slight difference, but it brings or makes a difference at the end of it also. This is how I do make my images really have those beautiful and popping kind of feel to them. So if at all you found this tutorial really helpful, remember we learned about frequency separation, dodging and burning, how to make your images and colors pop, blemish removal, eye and teeth whitening, and color grading in general. So if at all you love this tutorial, don't forget to like this video, and don't forget to hit the subscribe button. If at all you learned on this video for the very first time from this channel, don't forget to subscribe, hit the like button, and drop your comment in the comment section. I'm Ronix from Ronix Photography. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to keep creating.